The Spider-Verse franchise is truly brilliant, but it is a bit confusing. Across the Spider-Verse added so much more context and tidbits. Some are true, some are lies, but they all retroactively change the story of Into the Spider-Verse. Because of this, for Beyond the Spider-Verse to make sense, we need to fully understand the weight of these retroactive changes to see how they will affect the story. So now that we have a digital release of Across the Spider-Verse, I rewatched it to fully understand the story between the two films. Hopefully, this video can either serve as a reminder of the events and to explain what happened in actuality in the universe and in timeline order. Now, the chronological beginning is when Kingpin had Alchemax begin research on the multiverse, where some of the most notable workers were Olivia Octavius and Jonathan Ahn. The project was working, and Jonathan even managed to bring a spider from another universe, Universe 42 to be exact, not to mention Gwen Stacy around the same time. But because of the loss of the spider, there was no one to bite Universe 42 Miles, and that universe would go without a Spider-Man, leaving that Miles to become the Prowler. But back in Universe 1610, that universe's Miles Morales is bitten by the Dimension 42 spider, granting Miles Morales spider powers. Miles stumbles onto Spider-Man Peter Parker fighting the Green Goblin the next day at the Alchemax Collider, where Peter Parker then dies. Now, this is where things begin to get a bit more complicated because Miguel says the reason for Peter's death is because Miles get bitten by the spider, but that might not be the case. Firstly, in the comics, Peter and Miles coexist in the same universe, and that should be connected to the Spider-Verse, which means you can have two Spider-Mans living. Not to mention, Miles had been bitten the day before, not right then. No one might say it was only after Peter and Miles made the connection that Peter died, but Miles made that same link, that same connection with so many other Spider people, both in Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, and none of them died even though they were in the same dimension. So I think Miguel is either lying or he's wrong. After that, Miles met up with Peter B. Parker, who acted as his Spider mentor for the movie. They raided Alchemax, where they then met Gwen Stacy. She had previously interacted with Miles at their school, but now they both knew the other was a spider person, and they become great friends. After meeting the rest of the spider people at Aunt May's house, Miles is followed back to the base, where the Sinister Six attack, and Miles has his first canon event. During the attack, Prowler, who was Miles' uncle, hunted Miles, nearly killing him. But when Miles showed Prowler his face, Prowler let him go. Where Kingpin killed Miles' uncle Aaron, letting Miles experience a canon event with his uncle dying. When the Spider People leave Miles to stop Kingpin, Miles finally becomes Spider-Man. He gets his own spider costume, but more importantly, he takes his leap of faith. At the Collider, Miles is gives an opening to his friends so they can get home safely. But during this fight, Penny Parker's spider died, meaning she had basically lost her powers. But after everyone leaves, Miles faces down Kingpin. In the scene, Officer Morales watches Miles fight Kingpin and lets go of the notion that Spider-Man killed Uncle Aaron, which he thought before this. Miles defeats Kingpin, blowing up the Collider, which leads to samples of interdimensional portals being held at the Alchemax facility to break, infecting Jonathan Ahn and turning him into the Spot. Now, after Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, we have a time skip of 1 year and 4 months, and in that time, a lot of things happen. Most importantly, Miguel O'Hara finishes a device which can transport him in between dimensions, and he establishes the Spider Society. Now, we have one of the most confusing elements timeline-wise right now. Miguel goes to another dimension to replace the alternate version of himself, in which he breaks canon and has that universe destroyed. It seems like this is after he formed the Spider Society, though, because right after he created the Watchers we see in the end credit scene of Into the Spider-Verse, he immediately went to the animated series Spider-Man dimension, and the fact that Peter B. Parker was there when Miguel destroyed canon. And I don't think it was Peter's dimension that Miguel went to, because Peter already had a watch, and Mary Jane and Mayday probably would have died just like everyone else in the universe, meaning it wouldn't make sense if that was Peter's dimension. Though, speaking of MJ, Peter B. Parker reconnects with Mary Jane, and together they have a child. Penny Parker also builds herself her own suit without the need of her spider, and Miles Morales masters how to become Spider-Man. Now, what should come next is the movie's opening scene with Gwen narrating, but I don't think that scene goes here. It talks about many events in the movie, and we see events that happen later on, but she refers to them in past tense, so I'll mention later where I think it'll go. But what happens next is Paper Vulture is sent to Gwen's dimension, where she meets Miguel O'Hara and Jess Drew. Her father also discovers her secret identity, and Gwen is invited to the Spider Society. Now, I think this moment could have been a possible canon event if Gwen actually stayed instead of going to another dimension. Both her father, a police chief, and a child were in the collapsing building. If Miguel didn't interrupt and left Gwen alone, I think a canon event very well could have occurred. Now, either free or arrested, I think Gwen and Captain Stacy, while exiting, may have had Rebel crash down on them, and Gwen's father would have sacrificed himself. We'll never know, but her father quits right after this scene, and it would be the last real time this canon event can occur, unless very later on she discovers a new police chief, but again, that's not very likely. But now, we have another time skip of a few months in which Gwen becomes part of the Spider Society and becomes great friends with Hobie Brown, and just friends with many other Spider people. In this time, she also finds out that Miles was the first anomaly. Now, I should also mention anomalies and canon events are two different things. The Vulture in the Art Museum was an anomaly because he shouldn't be in that universe, but canons are things that need to happen, and breaking canon is when they don't. Now, anomalies can break canon, and often do, which is why they're so dangerous, like when Miguel goes to another universe. He is an anomaly being in the universe, but the fact that he is alive when it's a canon event for him to be dead, that is what breaks canon. But now, though, we can resume in our timeline order. Miles fights Spot, and Gwen comes and reunites with Miles. We also get a discussion about what canon is, where Gwen says that in every other dimension, Gwen falls in love with Spider-Man, but also has a tragic fate. Here we also see that Miles has his first instinct to break canon. Around the same time, Spot learns he can use his holes to travel the multiverse and goes to various other Kingpin colliders and gains more and more spots until stopping in Mumbahattan. Gwen goes off to follow Spot, and Miles follows her. In Mumbahattan, we meet Spider-Man India and Spider-Punk, and we also see the Spot gain unlimited power by having another collider explode and getting even more spots where he's basically just all black, all a big spot. We also see a link form between Miles and Spot, which causes Miles to see a vision of his father's death. Now, the link is interesting because it's very similar to what happens when Miles meets a similar spider person. Though maybe as Spot is Miles' nemesis, and that's the moment where it really happens, that causes their link. Miles then proceeds to break canon and goes by saving the police chief, and then he goes back to the Spider Society HQ. From here, there's not much to discuss, it's very straightforward. Miles learns about canon, he leaves the Spider Society, and he gets trapped by Earth 42 Miles, the Prowler, and that's basically where we end the movie. Now, at this end of the movie, Gwen mentions finally becoming a part of a band when she gets her whole Spider team back together, and at the end of the speech from earlier, she mentioned she always wants to be in a band, but she couldn't really be able to. So I think that monologue that I mentioned earlier goes right as she reunites everyone. She's standing in that pose, and then the dialogue's finished when she says the line of, "Now I'm finally forming my own band." Anyway, so that is basically everything in timeline order that happened in the two Spider-Verse films. Hopefully now you are prepared for Beyond the Spider-Verse. But what did you think? Did I miss anything important? And what about my ordering and my explanation of things? Hopefully it all makes sense, but make sure to let me know what you think of this video also, because it's a new style for me, so let me know if you like it or not, and any criticisms you have. This is my only video for Across the Spider-Verse, though. I recently made a video both explaining and breaking down canon, seeing what it means, and how it will play into the plot of Beyond the Spider-Verse. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to check out this video. And here is a recent animated short film of mine, SPIs. It took a lot of work, so I would really appreciate your support. Subscribe for more videos on animation and Spider-Verse. I have been Fictional Fanatics. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, but until then, bye!